Welcome once again to swingster.com. My name is David Banks, and I'd like to talk about some information exchange relationships when it comes to an instruction environment, and then we're going to finish off today by talking a little bit about the lower body and how that lower body, if moving efficiently, will start the process of this kinetic link that we've touched on in the past. So first, we want to get better with our golf. And of course, we've had some discussions, and I've done a couple blogs about practicing, how much practice, what is effective practice. What I want to talk about today is information exchange. So if someone's in an instruction environment, there is a procedural relationship. The first step is the information itself. Is the information accurate, relevant? If we were to look at some of the, and I even talked about this in the past, if we were to look at some of the tips or the little suggestions that people make to try to help someone else, very often these tips or these concepts or comments are actually not even remotely realistic. They just become commonplace because someone has stated them so many times that people now think it's accurate. So a little tip environment is, without question, not the best way to try to learn anything, especially golf. So we first have to understand we have to have proper information. The second thing we need is to have some way of making sure that information is conveyed, and that comes from the instructor, coach, whatever you want to call it. And if the instructor has the proper information and has an ability to convey that information, then that's the second step of the process. The third step is the reception of the information. Does the person who needs the help, is seeking the help, do they understand, do they comprehend, do they have the concept of the information as to what they're supposed to do, and does the information include how they are supposed to do or make this improvement? And then the next step of the process needs to be, does that person who has received the information and hopefully have an understanding of the how, can they now transfer that or take that information and now create a movement that mirrors or is in conjunction or in line with that information? At any point in this process, something can break down. If the information is not good or inaccurate or irrelevant, then the process stops. If the coaching environment, if the instructor doesn't do a good job of understanding the information or conveying the information, the process breaks down. If the reception of the delivery of the information is not good, if the person doesn't comprehend, or if they have the wrong idea, if they believe that they're thinking A and the reality is B, that now breaks down the relationship. If they have great information, great explanation, great transfer information, great reception of the information, but now poor application of the information, now the whole process breaks down. And then once the application is there, then the final step, a supervision, coaching, adjustment, correction environment based on having a supervised, trained, educated eye to make sure that the practice, the training is being done effectively and efficiently. That's the process. If all those steps aren't looked at, then we could have a problem with the learning environment, and now someone says, well, I took some instruction, I didn't get better. Well, maybe one of those things was a problem, and we need to look at which one of those was the problem. Was it the information? Was it the understanding and transfer of the information? Was it the reception of the information? Was it the application of the information? Or was it the conditioning training of that movement relationship? So keep that in mind if you're getting some help, that has to be the process. And now, with that being said, let's move on to just talk a little bit about lower body movement. I've had lots of different people express to me or say, oh, I saw this on the Golf Channel, or I saw this in a book or a video, whatever, I saw this on YouTube. And what happens very often is people have a distorted perception of what should be happening in the lower body. A very, very large number of people actually have far too much lateral movement in their lower body, which makes it very difficult for all the connective relationships to be effective and to work in conjunction. Or they have very, very little lower body or no lower body involvement, and now they never ever start the engine. So I want to talk real simply about hopefully a helpful and effective image or some imagery so that people at home, people watching this video, can get a sense of what actually takes place in the lower body movement and to what degree. All right? So to touch on this lower body movement first, I'm sure you've heard people talk about firing the hips. and you got to get that shift to your left. Well, those are very accurate statements, providing the reception is based on understanding exactly what that person is trying to convey. So the reality is this. When we're in our setup, we should have our weight relatively equally distributed. There might be a fraction of more weight to one side or the other, but for all intents and purposes, we're going to start relatively centered. If we turn, we need to understand that the support center is basically your spinal relationship, and we want to use that as kind of a support rotation axis. When that happens, we are now going to simply rotate, and we rotate to the right if I happen to be a right-handed golfer. When we rotate in that clockwise direction, I want you to maybe keep this image in mind. For any of you that have been hockey players, and it's pretty common for me coming from Canada, or skiers, you'll understand the inside and outside edge concept. Inside edge of the skate blade or inside edge of the ski. And you will know that if you're on the inside edge, we can now skate or ski effectively, and if you're on the outside edge, you're falling over. So you want to keep that same image in mind in golf. So right now, my weight's equally distributed, but I'm on the inside edges of those skis or of those skate blades. And now, when I create my backswing turn, I've now loaded a significantly more amount of weight to my back foot, but it's still on the inside edge of that blade or that ski. The movement now is to simply take that weight and shift it to the inside edge of my other foot. It only requires about that much lateral movement. It's only a couple of inches. But so often I see, this reference where someone will put a line beside someone's foot and they'll say, okay, now you got to close that door. And what ends up happening is this is a massive lateral movement. And what happens is with that massive movement and now the rotation, we end up on the outside of our ski or skate blade prematurely. So what you want to try to get is that feeling, and you can just practice real simple. Okay, I've loaded the inside edge, loaded the inside edge. Inside, inside. And you'll see there's not a big amount of movement. It's mostly lower body. There's the movement. And if we had a couple scales on the ground, you would see the needles doing this. They are varying. They're changing. Inside edge, inside edge. Now, we're going to talk about, that's a little bit of a shift. That's the bump, so to speak, one of the common terms here. And now we're going to talk about the actual rotation. The rotation is simply, if you want to have the same image, we're going to take that weight, which is on the inside edge, and now we're going to imagine, for a right-handed golfer, we're going to turn left on the ski hill. We're going to turn clockwise around the net on the ice rink. And what happens is when we get into our inside edge, now we rotate, and when we rotate, we now align the knee and the ankle and the hip to support on our left side, and now my weight is favoring the outside edge of my skate blade or my ski. But I'm not falling off of my skate or dragging my boot in the snow if I'm skiing. So if you want to keep that little simple image in mind, when you're taking some practice swings, try it when you hit some golf balls, take it slow at first because you want to make sure your body is aware of the feeling, and we very rarely are aware of a feeling when we're going full speed. Don't go faster than your awareness allows. So you say, well, here we go, I'm going to wind this up. Oh yeah, I really feel the inside edge. And now I'm going to shift. Oh, there's the shift, inside edge. And now unwind to the outside edge. Oh, I'm on the outside now just slightly. And when I complete the rotation, I'm full on the outside edge of my skate blade or my ski. My left leg is posted, and that means that you'll see the inside of my foot just barely breaking off the ground, my toes off the ground, my weight is rotated into the outside edge and definitely favoring the back half of my foot, because last time I checked, that's where my shin connects into my ankle behind the middle. Inside edge, rotate to the outside edge. Hope that image helps you with your lower body movement. If the lower body movement is better, it'll help transfer energy upward from the ground, out through the torso, into your arms, into the golf club. You'll start seeing some better shot production. Stay tuned, we'll be back soon.